Where to start?
Is it too much to ask for both?
What is going on, everybody? My name is Sean O'Connell, the managing director here at CinemaBlend, and we are in the middle of a debate that we wanted to sort of bring to this format so that a lot of people can sort of weigh in, and then we want to head down to the comment section to get your guys' opinions on this. We're essentially talking about the two rival superhero movie franchises, Marvel and DC, and talking about which one we think has a brighter future. And so to accomplish this conversation, I have brought along Eric Eisenberg and Mack Rawden, both from the CinemaBlend staff. Say hello, boys.
How's it going?
Who the hell are you guys?
Now, it's kind of fun in the fact that both Mack and Eric are strongly on opposing sides, and I find myself to be stuck right in the middle about whether Marvel or DC has a brighter future. Eric, tell us what side you're on and why, really briefly, before we start to really break this down.
What master do you serve?
I am Team Marvel. Yes! Obviously, this franchise has existed for a decade plus now, has built something absolutely incredible, and I feel like the future is building to something just as incredible.
It lives up to the hype, plus.
Mack, that puts you on Team DC.
Oh, man.
Clearly, it's been an incredible run for Marvel over the past decade. I think a much better run than DC, if we're being honest.
You're absolutely right.
But I really like some of the steps that DC has taken recently, and I think if you take a step back and you just analyze what to work with moving forward, that DC is the better playing ground.
You can say that again, pal.
I think there's really positive things about what each of these franchises are doing moving forward. But one place I really want us to start is the idea of the formula or the structure that these franchises are following. Marvel has a blueprint that they've been sort of going through over the course of 23 odd films. That is an interconnected universe where characters can bob in and out of it.
We all have our assignments.
DC was trying to do that now, but seems to be getting away from it.
No, it's not.
Eric, I'm going to go back to you because you seem to think that that formula or structure is working better, and that gives Marvel the advantage.
Just as far as kind of just the legacy of the franchise goes, and as far as like just building to something really interesting and cool, the Marvel formula, the reason why everybody wants to copy it is because it is just that. It is really incredibly cool to have all of these films, while operating independently, wind up kind of building to something bigger and better. Honestly, I think every single time that we've seen one of these major crossovers, whether it's one of the Avengers films or Captain America Civil War, or obviously what we've seen Infinity War and Endgame, every single time Marvel has proven incredibly just skilled at crafting those kind of stories while also letting films stand by themselves.
No mistakes.
Which, that seems to be the crux of what DC is getting at, the kind of just a more independent thing. However, at the same time, they do also seem to be holding on to some vestige of the DC Extended Universe via Wonder Woman and Aquaman, and it's strange to have those two things kind of competing at the same time. They've been attempting that on the animated front. They've been having animated movies that are a bit more serial, paired with ones that are independent. However, they're actually shutting that down because it doesn't really work as well as you want it to, and I think it'll be even harder on the grander live action scale where people are like, wait, which Batman exists in this universe?
I'll try to keep up.
And I think like the continuity of Marvel has become so strong, and it's such a back pocket thing that nobody else does as well as they do. And so, every single step of the way is a new puzzle piece that I think adds to a cooler, bigger picture.
This is the fight of our lives.
Yeah, the Marvel blueprint worked great.
Why, thank you.
And DC basically said, how can we take what Marvel's done and do it really quickly? We've got some good characters, let's throw them together, let's do these different things. Eventually people are going to want a cyborg movie and all of these different things, right?
Yeah, I know.
And that process didn't work.
I know.
For a variety of, issues with Zack Snyder that were outside of people's control.
That's still pretty fresh.
And different tones being jammed together, and it just didn't work. What I think DC has now done, and I'm excited about, is I think the game plan here is just, what are the characters we have that are working? I'll say Aquaman's mostly working. Yeah! Wonder Woman fully works.
All the time. I
think Batman always works to some capacity. Get him, Batman! And now they're saying, okay, how can we just make these the best they can be? And what tone do they need to be? Shazam doesn't need to fit into Wonder Woman, which doesn't need to fit into Joker.
I'm not sure the science really supports that.
Let's just worry about making good movies right now. Mm-hmm. Honestly, both Joker and Shazam have been some of the superhero movies over the last half decade that I've liked the most and have felt the most original to me.
This is proof of authenticity.
The adapted blueprint now of basically just saying, let's make good stuff and figure it all out later, and let's let filmmakers come in and do what they want to do. That's the blueprint I'm more excited about, and that's what I think can work over the short term and the long term.
The only thing that does make sense is that nothing makes sense.
I mean, if what Matt Reeves is building is a big adaptation of The Long Halloween that is meant to stand apart and stand by itself, I think that's really cool. The problem that I have is that they're trying to have their cake and eat it too by also still having some version of the DC Extended Universe.
I need friends.
And so I feel like it'd be one thing if they were to commit to that kind of storytelling, and I agree that it might attract some interesting filmmakers, but right now they don't have that kind of clarity. And meanwhile, over at Marvel, not only have they built something that has existed for more than a decade and is supremely popular, but the board is wiped clean. They are now basically where they are when they started back with Iron Man in 2008, except the thing that they have going for them is that they have the entire world ready to embrace every single move that they do.
Good luck keeping up.
We're talking about, between film and television, 22 different projects that they currently have in the works, and I'm excited for every single one of them.
I want to make an argument that you guys are a lot closer than you probably realize, because I think Marvel was very, very lucky for its first three phases to make everything interlock as well as it did. Part of it's Feige, which DC has never had a Kevin Feige in place overlooking all of this.
Thank you, Father.
And part of it's just happy accidents. Like right now, when we're looking at the delay that movie theaters are facing, like imagine if Marvel was still trying to tell their story in a procession and got hit with a delay like this. It could have derailed everything. So I'm not quite sure moving forward if Marvel is going to try quite as hard to make their movies tell an Infinity War saga type story. Which almost puts them where DC is at. Like, they can do an Aquaman movie, they can do a Shazam movie. There's a possibility that their characters could pop up together, but they're not forced to tell a larger story in general.
That's crazy, right?
See, I'm not 100% sure that is true, if not just because I think the thing that you're kind of ignoring on that is the Disney Plus stuff. For example, we've heard that WandaVision is going to have a direct link into Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which in and of itself, that title suggests that there is kind of big things afoot. Thor Love and Thunder, I mean, the fact that you also have that Loki series going, and it's been promised to also link into larger things that are going on the big screen. So I think those things are, I think that they will play it slow.
Now, so far, a lot of that stuff has been affected by these production delays.
So you might not see me for a long time.
I think those TV shows are still going to tie into the movies in general.
Sure.
But that's a question right now.
These are confusing times.
We haven't heard the schedule change, but I will actually say two quick things on that front. One, Marvel is so ahead of the game by doing the time jump in Avengers Endgame, skipping over anything that happened in the year 2020, which, by the way, was this whole like kind of disaster zone thing, and they're kind of just moving past it.
You gotta move on.
So they're so far ahead of the game on that point that it's crazy.
I get emails from a raccoon, so nothing sounds crazy anymore.
Eternals has been gifted a good extra 3 months to work on this film. And Taika Waititi actually said something about this recently, working on Thor Love and Thunder. But to have extra time, that is one of the most valuable resources in this industry. And I think it's only going to make Black Widow and Eternals stronger as people kind of think what's the best way to make these movies the best they can be with the time that we now have.
No amount of money ever bought a second of time.
DC is at a disadvantage because they just don't have their stuff together as well.
That's rude.
Here's where I'm going to push back a little bit, where I think I may have a different perspective. I would describe myself as someone who casually likes superheroes.
Of course.
When I look at what is left for Marvel, I see Thor, Spider-Man, Black Panther, and then I see the B team.
Whoa!
Hey!
People tell me I'm going to be excited about Shang-Chi, I'm going to be excited about the Eternals, maybe. But what I know I am excited about are Batman and Wonder Woman and Aquaman, Dwayne Johnson. There's a lot of sort of compelling reasons and backstory of characters that are going to get me to the theater. And it feels like Marvel is playing with a lot of Ant-Man style characters.
Like a little puppy, all happy and everything.
Ant-Man's fun enough,
including
that's not a shot at him. To me, after Endgame, it almost feels like a level set, and it feels like they basically have to remake this whole universe again. And it also just feels like you're losing a lot of your good characters in order to do that.
I know, of course you are. Of course.
And I want to bring up a point based on that, because I think both franchises are at a point where, you know, Nicole Kidman is playing Arthur Curry's mom, and Robert Redford pops up in the Marvel. Like, they're both attracting a crazy amount of talent. And just about either side, I think, can lure a major player if they want it. But the fact that DC can give someone like Joaquin Phoenix an opportunity to play Joker for one movie, and he isn't locked into a multi-picture deal, might give them a little bit more freedom to be totally flexible, so that if someone like a James Gunn comes around and says, I have an idea for one Suicide Squad movie, you know, and it's just this mission, can I tell it? That they can say, yeah, go ahead, tell that. Whereas the guys who are signing up for the Eternals are probably locked in to be the Eternals for 3 to 4 pictures. And, you know, that might give, I think, DC an advantage in that perspective.
I mean, honestly, I think this was something that was at the heart, like when Marvel first started its cinematic universe, that people were complaining about. Chris Evans was he bridled at the idea of signing a multi-picture contract when he was going to be Captain America, because he didn't want it to just take over his life.
Maybe I'll try some of that life.
But at the same time, he did put out a lot of extra stuff, and also I think you can use the popularity that you get as a springboard to other stuff. Chris Evans could use Captain America to make some more indie projects. And for example, I mean, Taika Waititi,
Who's asking?
He's making 2 Thor movies, but in between he's making a sports comedy, Next Goal Wins.
Oh my god.
Okay, let's use Thor Ragnarok as an example, right? Because I think it's something you could point to for Marvel as being maybe a little bit different in tone than some of the other things, being more of a filmmaker-driven vision in a way that Marvel is often criticized of not.
Gotta watch out for those Asgardians, man.
And so my question is just like, yes, Taika was able to find a way to execute his vision within this larger universe. But there have also been several other examples of directors within the Marvel universe, Edgar Wright, you know, Scott Derrickson recently, who stepped away and felt like they couldn't execute their vision because ultimately their vision has to fit into Kevin Feige's larger vision. And that's no disrespect to him. Clearly he's done a greater job, but like, he is the overall vision and you must make your vision fit within that.
We will not fail you, Father.
And so my question is, do you think that Marvel can ever have the same level of creativity or artistic freedom that would be compelling to a certain type of filmmaker or a certain type of actor like Joaquin?
I do.
Well, no one's laughing now.
You mentioned earlier that you had the clean slate and you're starting with Ant-Man level characters. I think you're more starting with Guardians of the Galaxy level characters.
Bingo! All right.
Audiences might not be familiar with them, but these movies give people the opportunity to get to know them and say, holy crap, I really love this character. I can't wait to watch them for the next decade on the big screen. And I think that's part of the magic. And you also do have stalwarts like Black Panther and Captain Marvel, and again, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and...
Hold on. I push back on you calling Captain Marvel a stalwart, and I think that's
movie.
I would argue a movie that was not very well liked. It may have made $1 billion, but do you know anyone that would consider that to be a even top 10 Marvel movie?
I know people who might.
No, but I don't think it has anything to do with the character. I think it has more to do with the movie.
Well, that speaks to 2 things that Eric brings up, which is brand loyalty. Like, people go to Marvel movies because it's the new Marvel movie.
With the Avengers.
I also do think that movie benefited from being the movie leading into Avengers Endgame. And she got teased at the end of Infinity War. So people really did feel like they had to know something about her. If let's say Captain Marvel was coming out in this Black Widow spot, where it's a fresh slate and we're starting over, I'm not quite sure it does quite as well. But I think all those factors sort of played in. But this brings us to an argument about female characters that each of these universes has to lean on. When you do look at Marvel, right off the bat, they're going back to a prequel for a character that we watched them kill off, which, in my opinion, always removes any stakes.
Lucky us.
And then you have Captain Marvel, who, because of Brie Larson, because of the way that the character is portrayed, she doesn't have as big of a fan base, I'm going to say right now, as a Robert Downey Jr., a Chris Evans, one of those characters who brought something to the screen.
I'm just supposed to take your word for that.
Over on DC's side, I don't think you can argue about the fact that Gal Gadot is a draw. Like, her first Wonder Woman film was a huge hit. Anticipation is really high to see what she's going to do in Wonder Woman 1984.
I really like her.
So I would give DC the advantage in terms of female characters that are going to be portrayed in films moving forward. Although, when the Guardians finally get a release date, Nebula and Gamora, of course, are very popular characters on that side as well, too.
Do you just forget the existence of Scarlet Witch?
I don't even know who you are.
You will.
Because I know a few people on the internet who might be.
Scarlet Witch is not at the same level of Wonder Woman.
I'm not saying it's level Wonder Woman.
All right, enough. All of you.
I'm not going to argue that Wonder Woman is an important character.
She's been underused to this point.
But let me ask you both a question. Hold on. Let me ask you both a question. I would argue that if I only had to pick one character in one franchise within these larger franchises that I was the most optimistic about to carry forward, I would pick Wonder Woman. And I'm not just talking about, female superheroes. I'm talking about any superheroes on the board right now where they're currently located. I am most excited about the long-term artistic vision and money-making future of Wonder Woman.
You have been my greatest love.
Honestly, Black Panther, Ryan Coogler, what that dude brings to the table, I think is absolutely incredible. And the fact that you can do such incredible storytelling within Wakanda and on a global scale, as just given his positioning as the king of Wakanda and a superhero at the same time. Yeah, I think Black Panther is just as exciting as Wonder Woman.
My son, it is your time.
What franchise? Are you going to say Spider-Man? Is that where you're going with this?
I mean, I would say Spider-Man, yeah, for sure. But I even think if they figured out how to properly tell a Superman story, that character has a ton of potential.
The world needs Superman.
I think the reason that the studios keep going back to Batman is because he's a proven character who could survive multiple interpretations.
I'm Batman. I'm awesome.
To this point in this conversation, we have not yet mentioned the words X-Men or Fantastic Four, which is going to take an entire degree of work to integrate. And there is an extreme level of anticipation, if not just for like the main X-Men, but also, I mean, I can say Deadpool 3 because it's gonna be the continuation with Ryan Reynolds, but it is probably gonna be its own beast, and not to mention potentially introduce R-rating storytelling into the MCU, which is its own big deal by itself.
So. We're gonna form a super duper fucking group.
Terrific, because that's the last point that I would like to bring up. Do we think Marvel will ever rip the Band-Aid off and join DC in making R-rated level storytelling? Now, I don't think that it's the be-all end-all that a superhero movie has to go R-rated, but Logan was a terrific Wolverine movie because it was able to embrace its R rating, essentially. The R rating fit that character. And when Todd Phillips did his Joker movie, I'm glad that they went R rating because I just think if they gave it a PG-13, it would have watered it down. There are characters in the Marvel Universe that can be brought over. Like if they told me they were making a Punisher movie and it was going to be Marvel's first R-rated movie, I'm all in. Like that's fantastic. Eric, as the Marvel guy, do you think they're ever going to be able to make an R-rated Marvel movie?
Yes, I mean, Bob Iger has said as much. He said that when Deadpool is going to be in the Marvel Universe, which he'd be crazy not to bring him into the Marvel Universe because he's one of the most extremely popular single characters you have on the big screen right now, he's going to have his R rating.
You're living the dreams, DP.
Whether it takes maybe like Disney just separating it by releasing it through like Fox or whatever it takes, or like maybe the multiverse takes an extra step into the future and we see like the equivalent of the Marvel Max comics, which were the comics from like 20 years ago that had more adult content, and maybe you do like put them in their own box for a little bit just to like just ensure that like the little kids maybe aren't heading into the R-rated film. But yeah, I think those movies absolutely will exist.
I disagree.
One small thing.
I think even if Bob Iger and Kevin Feige give us an R-rated movie, I think it's going to be R-rated in name only. Like, I think what mattered about Joker isn't necessarily that it was R-rating. It's that it was profoundly weird and disturbing and uncomfortable, and it was not meant to be a popcorn sort of movie.
Isn't it beautiful?
And whether we get an R-rated movie or not from Marvel or Disney, I just don't think that Disney is ever going to approach the same level of ick that DC is going to be comfortable embracing.
All right, let's get to our final comments really quickly. I'm going to say that over the course of this conversation, I have defaulted over to Marvel's side.
We won.
With the potential to go into the Fantastic Four, with the potential to bring in the X-Men, with the potential to explore corners of the universe, it feels like Marvel has a stronger foundation on which to build. They have laid out all these characters. They can now explore new corners of this universe. They can introduce new characters, but they don't have to stick with them if they don't find their audience necessarily. The Eternals might become a one-off. Shang-Chi might become a one-off. They've got plenty of sequels coming down the line from characters that are proven, and a lot of places they can explore moving forward. Also, I'm going to give them the edge because of Kevin Feige.
I am inevitable.
They have Kevin Feige, who seems to be a master storyteller. He pulled it off with the Infinity Saga. And while I really, really like the freedom that DC has at this point, because they are willing to go after any type of property as long as it seems like it's going to tell a good story. And for that, I love what they're doing with the Batman and Robert Pattinson and Matt Reeves, who I think is a fantastic director. And I think bringing James Gunn over to do a Suicide Squad movie and exploring the potential of Black Adam with The Rock, it's exciting and I like it. I think it's really good, but I'm willing to bet on the model that is Marvel. And so, Eric, what is your final thoughts on this now that I've joined your team?
The revolution has begun.
I mean, I bring back the number 22 upcoming projects between Disney Plus shows and big screen projects and stuff that isn't necessarily dated right now. And every single project is an exciting one. Meanwhile, and is bringing something brand new to the table. Meanwhile, when I look at the DC slate, I'm back to the feelings that I had in 2010 when I would look at when I heard about the Green Lantern movie and thought, oh wow, they're finally gonna break out of like the holy trinity of characters, and we're gonna see characters beyond Batman and Joker and Superman, and yet that seems to be exactly where we still are with DC. And I am a DC fan, but at the same time, like, I think that they are playing catch up as far as what modern cinema can do with this kind of storytelling. And meanwhile, Marvel is just killing it.
That feels like an oversimplification.
I think that certainly your side is the safer side. I think probably the majority of people are on your side. You know, I think over the next 10 years, Marvel's going to release a ton of really, really solid movies. And I think because of Kevin Feige and all these different things, they're going to live in the B to A range all the time. Like, I think audiences will be pleased. They will be churning out really good content. I will go to these movies and I will enjoy them. But I think some of this is, how do you define success? And what are you ultimately looking for? And I think that if I were to be told, hey, there's going to be more superhero movies that are going to be nominated for Best Picture or feature a Best Acting Performance or some of these other things, I think they're more likely to come out of DC. I think DC is going to take more chances. I think they're going to do weirder things. I think they're also going to miss a whole lot more, and they're going to have some movies that suck. And so I think over the next 10 years, Marvel will probably make more money. I'm not for sure committing to that, but I think there's a good chance they'll make more money. I think they'll probably have a total number of good movies, but I think those highs are going to come to DC. And as someone who is not obsessed with superheroes or really into superheroes, I'm more excited about seeing those really high peaks than I am just seeing consistently good superhero content. And that's why I still choose DC.
Okay, so you've heard our arguments, and you could tell why we had to bring this conversation to the YouTube page. So now it's your turn. Head down to the comments section. Tell us which side you agree with, whether you think Marvel or DC has a brighter future. Hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications. Every time that we post a new video here on the YouTube page, you'll be the first ones to hear about it. And of course, bookmark CinemaBlend, because we are covering both Marvel and DC to the fullest on the page, and we'll have plenty of content for you to read if you like either or both of those franchises. Thank you so much to Eric Eisenberg and Mack Rawden for joining us, and we will see you guys here for another discussion sometime soon.